Hello, everyone. If that sound didn't wake you up, hopefully I can now. Welcome to our Be Kind, Rewind, Reboot Your In-Person Events Playbook webinar. So happy that you all could join and really appreciate you all taking the time to spend with me today. Hopefully this will be a lot of fun and we'll learn some stuff and we'll stay on time as well. But before I introduce myself, I wanted to do a couple of quick housekeeping items. On the right side of your screen within the Attendee Hub, you can join the chat and you can also submit questions in the Q&A. We'll have myself and other folks on the team moderating and making sure that those all get addressed. Also, please fill out the survey as well as we wrap up at the end of the webinar. We really appreciate all the feedback, me personally, but as well as the organization, so we can improve our webinars and continue to make these fruitful for everyone who joins. And you'll also be able to see upcoming webinars that we have over the next couple of weeks, some really good stuff coming up that you can register for ahead of time, and all the details will be provided there. So there's the housekeeping stuff. Now we'll get into the good stuff for the day. I'll start with a quick introduction. So my name is Angel Santiago. I'm one of our director of sales here at Cvent. Coming up on my 5-year anniversary here in July. Used to be part of our mobile solutions team and on-site team. And now I'm part of our event cloud on the new business side. I'm also here remote in Wisconsin. I'm not a Midwesterner. I actually grew up on the East Coast in Virginia, was out of our headquarter office for about 2.5 years, and then have been here remote in Burlington, Wisconsin for the last 2. So a little bit about me. Looking forward to hopefully getting to know all of you that are joining today at some point in the future as well. But now we're actually going to kick into the good stuff, and I'll give you a little bit of kind of our agenda and a snapshot of what we'll be covering today. Hoping to keep it to 35, 40 minutes. At times I can be a little long-winded, so I'll do my best to keep track of my timing and keep everybody engaged and really make sure we get you out of here on time today. And for the agenda, there's a lot of bullet points on there, but we're really going to look at kind of the rebooting of in-person events in 2 phases. We're looking at the strategy side, thinking about just kind of the new era of in-person, if you will, what's changed both on the planning side as well as on the attendee side. Some of the areas will be really digging into visibility and just kind of reimagining how we're putting on our in-person events. And we'll also look at what we're calling kind of the 4 pillars of strategic event design. Different aspects that really we've seen are driving the most fruitful in-person events and the ones that clients are really seeing the most success with. That's one piece on the strategy side, but then we'll also look at the execution piece of it. The plan is one piece, but really how are we delivering it when the event is ready for prime time? But we will be looking at that end to end from things like budgeting and finding the right venue. The marketing and promotion of the event and making sure that that's on point to our target audience. And then obviously the on-site experience, really delivering that in-person event when it's time to go, and what we're doing post-event as well. So we'll look at different aspects within strategy and execution, but those will be really kind of the 2 main themes, if you will, of today's content. And then lastly, at the end, we'll kind of give a quick summary, a little conclusion of some takeaways in hopes that those are all things that you all can take back to your team and your organization and implement. And we'll save some time for Q&A as well, just so we can address all those questions that are coming in throughout the webinar. And before getting into the tactics and kind of the nitty gritty, if you will, of some of these areas, I wanted to kind of set the stage and provide a couple of recent trends that we've been seeing. So, when we look at part 1 in the strategy, we'll focus a lot on, this new era of in-person events, as we're calling it. And some of the things that are kind of impacting this for you all, both outside factors as well as inside factors. But before that, and diving deeper into them, I did want to kind of look at a couple of trends that we've seen across our customer base, across the events landscape. This was actually a really great kind of study that our sales enablement and marketing team put together, looking at 9 trends of what it was originally that we saw last year and going into this year across our customer base. But what we brought here on this slide is really consolidating kind of the top 5 that we are seeing most consistently, and we're hearing on calls with customers and prospective clients. None of these should be shocking, but I think it really frames up when we think about the strategy in this new era, some of the things that are top of mind for folks like yourself. One being obviously budget, spend dollars. It's on everyone's mind. It's in every conversation. Really trying to do more with less, and really making sure we're getting the most out of the dollars across our events program. A really big emphasis on data. Obviously, data has always been a big piece of in-person events and events program, but really, taking that data to the next level, having that drive our strategy, and really being a little bit more kind of thoughtful in terms of how we're leveraging that data. When we think about, connecting our events programs, obviously, larger organizations, there might be silos, there might be, a lot of different tech and a lot of different ways that we're delivering these events. There is something that we've seen that people are just thinking about it a little differently. They're trying to connect them, trying to consolidate, trying to get more fluidity across the organization. Another big piece is, we've all been doing it the last few years, where we had to pivot to virtual. Then hybrid was the next, big buzzword. And now it's really trying to find a balance of, as we go back in person, and everybody's excited about that, including us, still incorporating digital elements into the live event and that in-person event. We've seen a lot of value there as well. And then obviously consolidation. When we think about point one around spend and budget and just being very kind of conscious of what we're spending dollars on, a big kind of outcome of that is, looking at our tech stack and thinking about, hey, things that we're doing in 4 or 5 different places, can we bring that down to just one place or one platform that can, knock off a lot of these things? So again, those are things that we've seen across our customer base. But one thing I wanted to highlight here, and we'll also share post this webinar, is a recent Forrester report that we actually just released here in 2023, where they had some interesting findings as well that really aligned well with what we just covered here. They kind of looked at key findings, and there was 4 buckets that they highlighted. One being that events are now more important to driving key business goals. Always have been important, but now in person and really knocking these events out seems to be amplified and of even more importance in the current state that we're in. Companies are benefiting most with in-person engagement, but they're still leveraging digital reach and digital aspects. So no surprise there, very similar to what we're hearing from our customers. And that even though we're going back and fully in person, not everyone is, but those that are still not forgetting some of the value that comes from digital elements. One thing from event leaders, a third theme that they talked about was, again, consolidating tech to gain a more holistic view of event performance. So really thinking about, that consolidation and really being able to see our, not just event to event success, but across the entire program, how we're performing as an organization, and, are we hitting those key metrics? And then even with in-person, the fourth theme is more on the attendee side, that they're just expecting a little bit more of those digital elements as well. So not just that the planners are aware of it and the marketers are aware of it, but that the attendees actually expect to have some digital elements or features available to them, even though they're still there in person. So it was interesting to see that what we found just across our customer base, and then what Forrester also saw in their report, really aligned well. So these trends, across let's say the last 12, 18 months that we've seen firsthand, was really kind of validated in their research. And with that said, I know those are just a few of the pieces that we'll cover today, and some of those trends. And just, those are some of the things that are part of the puzzle, for planners and marketers. There's other things that you all are having to navigate as well, that we'll touch on here. And we really kind of think of that new era, if you will, of in-person events. So one being attendee expectations. I think outside of, the pressures that planners and marketers are having is, really kind of getting into the mindset of attendees and how that's changed. The craving for more interaction and interactivity, really looking for a more personalized experience. We always want something that speaks to us and makes us feel special. But I think that's really been elevated, here over the last, couple of years, where those attendees really want to feel like it's built for them, and every aspect of the event kind of life cycle feels very personalized. And they're just looking for an elevated experience, great content, great on-site experience. I think they're being a little pickier, in terms of which events that they're going to or are of interest to them. So really having to upscale the content and the experience is top of mind for attendees as well as planners. But there are pressures that we're seeing out there as well. that it's not just on the attendee side. We're seeing outside factors that some are not in our control necessarily, but then also pressures internally across the organizations. When we think about everybody's feeling it with inflation and the uncertainty of the market, those are things that are top of mind, and there is pressure there to really allocate the dollars and also just have the ROI to justify the spend in certain places as well. So those are real things when we look at the new era and kind of where we're at right now. The attendees, have high expectations. There's a lot of pressure outside as well as internally that we need to navigate and make sure as we're building our strategy are all top of mind. And then lastly, a lot of change. We've seen this, we've felt this as well. Us personally, we've seen it in our industry, in event tech, that layoffs have happened, and there's been some businesses that have had to close doors. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of turnover, and on your side in this new era is having to navigate that. Maybe having a smaller staff, or maybe partners that you guys have leveraged in the past, no longer being able to leverage them. So really just maybe having to reset, have some new beginnings, and re-strategizing and rethinking the program. So there's a lot there to navigate, a lot of trends that we're seeing, a lot of changes, a lot of things that we're having to navigate day in and day out, and all things that kind of need to be considered when we think about in-person in our events program and future success of it as well. And with kind of these things that we're looking at here and this new era, I think I would say a very positive outcome that's come from it is really an emphasis and a focus on visibility, really kind of peeling off the onion layers and digging a bit deeper into event programs, end to end, every aspect of it. Whether it's, the spend, we'll talk about that a few times here today, but it is very, very relevant in today's world. How much are we spending and where are we spending those dollars? Are they being allocated in the right places? Really scrutinizing, the value of those dollars. Are they delivering ROI? If so, how are we showcasing that? How are we proving that the ROI is there? So I think that visibility and that digging deeper is very much something that we're seeing on the strategy side across the board. Organizations are just really hunkering down and making a part of their day to day. And with that, when we think about the spend and the budget, one area that a lot of these conversations I'm having with folks like yourself is really looking into their process, thinking about the staff and how they work with team members internally, and how our process in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. Are these manual things, while maybe not a budget line item, are they costing the business money? Are there ways that we can be doing it more effectively? I think that lack of visibility, if you will, into the program and maybe not having really clear understanding. Obviously, that changes vertical to vertical, but we've seen across every industry. The reality is people maybe hadn't been investing as much time here and really digging beneath the surface to see the efficiency and effectiveness of our events program outside of just certain events. And again, thinking about not just where those dollars are being spent, but with who. Do we have the right partners in place, the right technology in place? Are we spending in 4 or 5 different investments of technology across different departments, or maybe we could consolidate that and all of us be working from the same platform, the same tools? So I think this focus and index, if you will, on visibility, it's really driven. These organizations are trying to create more consistency. So those kind of last 3 bullet points there at the bottom, I would say this is kind of the result of this increase in visibility. Is they're looking for consistencies. How can we get our efficiency internally to be better by being consistent across department to department or event to event? Let's consolidate. We'll talk about that a lot, but it is a big theme and something we're hearing and seeing in the market a lot. Is again less stuff out there that we're using, so we can do more from one platform and have one central source of truth and system of record. And one that I love personally is we're seeing a lot more cross-departmental collaboration. So where there maybe were silos before, now with digging deeper and trying to make these changes internally, folks are more willing to collaborate and use tools together, and all kind of be all hands on deck and invested in the success of these programs. So I think those are some nice silver linings and positives that have come out with some of the things that we're navigating out there. So, with better visibility, we're reassessing, we're rethinking, and prior to getting into kind of the execution and digging into how we deliver in some of these aspects, we did want to kind of dive into those 4 pillars, as I mentioned at the beginning, of strategic event design. And now that we kind of see them listed out here, you can see audience, content, the live experience, and community. We're actually going to do a quick poll. And I'd like for everybody to go to the poll icon on the right-hand side of the Attendee Hub. You should see it there. And we're going to answer, which one of these pillars is the highest priority for your events program in 2023. It's possible that all of these might be important, but we'd like to see of these 4, which one would you say is kind of top priority for you all? Hopefully you guys can get that poll. Go ahead and answer it. And as those results start kind of coming in, we'll dive into each of these a bit further. So one being our audience, obviously super important. That's how our in-person events come to life. But really, when we think about this audience and the attendees, is it getting a better and a deeper understanding of who they are. Really, really personalizing that experience. We talked about that earlier. I think, obviously they're the lifeblood of these events, but with that data and with what we're doing on the strategy side, are we leveraging that to really engage with our audience effectively? From a content standpoint, we talked about their expectations and wanting to have that elevated, but also how are we delivering the content? A variety of different formats. Again, even if we're doing in person, are we making some aspects available in the digital format, or maybe post-event, having some stuff be on demand and allow people to gather it in the digital format. And really, driving our content and how we're building it with our audience in mind. What are they trying to get out of these events? What's the outcomes that they're looking for? And are we building, an understanding of this content based off of our audience and what we've found out about them and the research that we've done. The live experience, I try to think of a way to really frame this up. I said, kind of throw out the rule book. I think one thing that we've seen and it's been really exciting to talk to customers about is just how they're rethinking their overall program and how they want to deliver the live experience. Really making sure that they're trying new things and getting out of their comfort zone a little bit, but also being flexible. That hey, if someone was planning to be in person and then last second wasn't able to, do we have the ability to pivot? Do we have the ability to be flexible and maybe still offer some components so they get to experience it? So I think, just trying some new things, getting creative with the live and in-person experience and being flexible as well. And then lastly, community, big word that we're hearing very much so across all industries is, really driving that, community and everybody being, on the same page at these events. I put FOMO for the win. Just really creating that people don't want to miss out on it. With this, they're going to get a sense of community and meet other like-minded folks. So they really need to be a part of that in-person event. And then just, kind of embracing and, leading, doing new things out there that, can trailblaze for others in the community. I think when we look at putting on a world-class in-person event, even now as we're rebooting and getting back into it, these are the 4 key elements. What we really see customers that are doing extremely well in this are really kind of taking these 4 to heart and bringing them to life in their experience. All righty. So I think we've had some time there. There we go. And now we get to look at these results. So let's see here. Content. I love it. Close race though. This is very exciting to see. Excellent. Content and audience really being neck and neck. Obviously the in-person and live experience, still a good portion of it as well. Fantastic stuff. I love to see it. And I think whatever pillar, is top priority for you, your organization, obviously it seems that building a foundation of success across all 4 of these in some capacity is really going to be, the best way to have a strong strategy and get your event, an in-person event, ready for prime time. So we've talked a lot about strategies. Thank you all for taking the time to fill out that poll and, give us the responses there. It's great to see that it is pretty widespread as well. Love seeing that. And now we're going to kind of transition into part 2, if you will. We've covered part 1, and that's the execution. So this is where, hey, all that stuff that we've done in terms of preparation and really getting our strategy tight. Now it's time to bring it to life and execute on it. And we are going to look at this through a couple of different lenses, not just the on-site experience, obviously a critical component of it, but also looking at it, really kind of end to end, starting with, venue management and how we're, finding the right place to reboot and bring back our in-person events. And then, we already know that venue management's been important. It always has been. It's a big piece of our overall spend on these events. For some, sometimes it's 30 or 40% of the overall event spend is just in finding the right venue and having the right resources there. But now, in today's world, as we talked about earlier, costs are higher. There might be some staffing shortages. We have to think about sustainability and accessibility and some of those, social pressures, if you will. Some of these, venues or locations may not have the same services that they had before, or supply and demand. There's a lot of people trying to find the best places, so there's a good chance that they might not be available, and we have to be on top of it. So I think when we think about that from the venue management side, it's really getting, I would say, folks like yourself, planners and marketers, to going back to visibility, kind of thinking, let's dig into this a bit further. When we think about our process today and how we select a venue for an in-person event, are we doing it in the most efficient manner? That's kind of what in the next slide here is, what considerations, or what I'm kind of hearing in conversations with customers and prospective clients when they think about venue management. Our process today, are we doing it in an efficient way? Is it effective? Are we finding the right places? A lot of times this isn't automated. They're doing it through Excel spreadsheets, or they have relationships maybe with folks they've used in the past, but there's no easy way for them to see and kind of filter out and find the best venues in a timely fashion, and something that's a little bit more efficient for them to do it. Also, just again, when we talk about centralization and consistency, is the way that marketing team looks for venues the same as how the sales team does, or the same as HR does, or technology does. So really thinking about that one system of record, one process from a venue management standpoint. And then also, again, are we tracking all of this, step to step? Are we able to see what venues we've done in the past, or where we've made, sent out RFPs and who responded? So all things that are being kind of scrutinized or looked at from a venue management standpoint, and also looking for technology that can streamline, automate that, make it easier, and have that kind of one central source of truth. So now that let's say we've checked that box, we found a good venue, we got it locked in. Now it gets to the next part of execution, which really kind of comes down to the promotional aspects, marketing, the event website, getting out there and getting the information, the agenda out, and having folks start registering for it and get excited for the upcoming event down the road. So marketing and promotion is an interesting one. There's a lot of stuff we could have covered here. I struggled with this slide in terms of really trying to kind of narrow it down, what we're seeing on the marketing promotion side. So we put it in kind of three buckets, of just kind of the timing of it, getting out there early. We see that it's always been, for larger events especially, having a longer runway and just getting registrations and getting people excited about it. But what we've seen kind of, I'd say, evolve from that is now it's not just launching the agenda or registration, but adding some value to attendees as well. Maybe it's, networking pre-event, or being able to schedule appointments, or being able to download and digest some of the content, even if it's just in teaser format, putting out hype videos or getting people excited about it. We're seeing that the runway has extended. It's a little bit longer than it used to be. But there's also a lot of kind of well thought out, cadence and communication and content that's being dripped along the way, which I think ultimately hits on a lot of those points of, the attendee experience and what they're looking for, and ultimately, mitigates, attrition and folks, not showing up, but also amplifies the numbers. Maybe they're telling others about it, and registrations going in the right direction. So longer runway, add some value. Obviously a great cadence, communicating at the right time, and just putting out those, good nuggets of content along the way. But one that I wanted to make sure that we talked about today and focused on, because I think it's a really great one to see, is these last 2 points here, kind of the all hands on deck approach, if you will, where We talked about those silos on the strategy side, and now on the execution. What's been great to see is just seeing organizations coming together a bit more, collaborating, and just all having kind of shared goals and really pushing to drive in-person events and registration numbers to new heights. We've even seen it. I'd say, a personal story here at CVent. We have our large user conference, CVent Connect. Always our big, show. Everybody gets excited about it. But a couple of years ago, when I first started, I felt like it was always really driven mainly by the events team and marketing. But now, we're having meetings where all of sales is involved and hearing about how we're progressing, how we're driving numbers. Product is interested in seeing how things are tracking, how people are signing up for certain sessions. So even, we're drinking our own champagne here, and that all hands on deck mentality. We're seeing it across the board. We're living it. And we're seeing it. It really does make a huge difference in terms of registration and just really delivering and executing a world-class in-person event. And one to validate again here is that in that same Forrester report, which we'll share, there was an interesting data point, really kind of quantifying that now more than ever, more teams are getting involved in events, like overall stakeholders. So this is an interesting, I know it might be a little bit small there, and it's a lot of numbers and graphs. But what this is showing over from 2 years ago, departments or teams that are how much more they've increased their involvement in events. So not to say that corporate IT is only in 15% of events or evaluations, but they've only increased their involvement 15%. Where you look at sales, customer experience, marketing, cybersecurity, all of those, a more than 50% increase in just the last 2 years. So I think that again validates the points of all hands on deck and just more folks wanting to be involved in driving the results when we talk about executing these in-person events. All right. Hopefully you guys are still with me, still following. I know that was a lot of stuff, but a lot of great data to share. And again, we'll share that report. I think there's a lot of good stuff that you guys will enjoy in there. So let's recap real quick. We've got a great venue, got a good process in place for that. We've promoted, we've done some excellent marketing. We're getting people excited about it. And then, the next step is prime time. It's the on-site experience. We got to execute and deliver here as well. So we're going to have one more poll here, kind of similar in terms of what we looked at earlier, where we talked about those 4 pillars. I guess we're all about the 4s today. We're going to talk about different aspects within the on-site experience. So from check-in to a mobile app, and using mobile, attendee tracking, and then lead capture, which we're kind of bucketing as, exhibitor or sponsorship, ROI or value. So if you guys can go into the poll, should be again, regards to the on-site experience, which of these, is most critical to your event success? I'm interested to see what the results are this time. I have a feeling that it might be spread out again, depending on the answers. And look at that. That is a nice mix that we see there. This one, man, that's cool. Excited to see that it's very, very even, almost a 25% split across all 4 buckets. Awesome. And not surprising though, I'd say, again, in these conversations that we're having and we're seeing in the space, it's all of these things are really important, if you will, when you think about that on-site experience. Not delivering in one of them, it could be detrimental, and delivering in all 4 is really where we see those in-person events just get to a whole another level of success. And again, the technology is leading the way for the on-site experience, obviously, but we talked about attendee expectations and how those are higher, and making a great impression is huge, on the check-in side, and making sure that's efficient. It's accessibility is in mind, or sustainability, whether it's the badges that we're using, or how we're making things available for people with disabilities, and making sure that they can have access as well. So there's so much that technology is driving in terms of that on-site experience and kind of the expectations today. Do we have enough kiosks for check-in, all those good things, the sustainable badge options, as I mentioned. The mobile app it's near and dear to my heart. Obviously, as I mentioned, starting on the mobile solutions team, just really seeing how much that's changed, in the 5 years that I've been here, but really those last 2 years as well. where people are just thinking about the app differently. It's obviously a lot more than just the agenda and the schedule and the map to navigate. It's really kind of a centralized hub for networking and for getting great data points on your attendees and understanding them much deeper than we have before. So I think that's been a great evolution on the execution side, is customers getting creative in how they're leveraging the mobile app, making it super impactful with content, but also really using it to extend the event lifecycle. I think that's been really exciting to see as well, is making that app available when they launch registration or shortly after, not just waiting until a couple of weeks before the event. Again, dripping the content or making videos or the ability to network available within the app well before the on-site experience takes place. But obviously, in the on-site experience, having a lot of good stuff, gamifying it, all the polls and surveys and different things you can incorporate into the app available, and those digital elements, as we mentioned. I think hand in hand with that, as we do more of that in the app and the check-in experience, we're tracking a lot of this stuff as well. We're getting more data. We're seeing a lot more kind of real-time feedback and updates from our attendees, which ultimately allows us to make those adjustments to, if it's a couple of day event, maybe from day 1 to day 2, we pivot, we change a few things based off of what we're seeing in the data and what we're seeing in those responses. Or worst case, if it's a 1-day event, we look at all that, we report on it, digest it after the event, and then make some adjustments to improve that in-person event in the future. And then again, maybe not relevant to everyone, but if you have exhibitors or sponsors at these in-person events, obviously new opportunities to monetize and really drive some revenue and hit those goals, and more conversions, whatever that conversion might be. If it's a nonprofit or association, maybe it's membership growth, or attracting new members or retention of those. Maybe it's new partners or folks that can get the mission out there and help the nonprofit grow. All things, as you saw in the poll results, very important in terms of execution. I love seeing that mix there. And I think, in today's world, it is critical that we're thinking about all 4 of these, and we're doing, taking the steps from a technology standpoint and a content standpoint to really knock it out across the board. All right, so we did see those results. I think it ended up being almost all of them in the mid-20s, so very, very close, neck and neck. And now switching gears a little bit, we've talked a lot about kind of the execution side, selecting the venue, the marketing and promotion, the on-site experience. Now we kind of want to flip going back to the attendees. We talked about them on the strategy side and the 4 pillars and thinking about our audience. And you'll see that, every event is different, obviously, and what's most important to you all, the planners, the marketers, varies, in terms of what's top of mind. But now we're going to think about, the attendee experience really, and some things there in terms of executing on site, and just with them in mind, some of the things that we need to think about in terms of getting it right is kind of how I labeled it. I struggle with this one because there's the attendee engagement it's tough. There's a lot of different personalities out there, different, target audiences. There's so much that we need to get right as a planner and a marketer, the timing of it, the content, obviously, really driving the community aspect and making them feel like they're part of a very tight knit group. And then obviously on the other side, our attendees that maybe fall in the sponsorship or the exhibitor side, making sure that we're giving them a lot of those things as well, the personalized experience, the right technology to make that, part of the setup and the execution easy for them. So a lot that goes into kind of how this has evolved. And I tried to really kind of, I'd say, simplify it here, that getting it right, and in quotes there, it's pretty hard, because there's a lot of things that we're juggling in terms of, executing on site, doing it the right way, and getting all of these rights checked off the box. So, it's very important to do so, on site, the timing has to be right throughout. We have to get the right content at the right time. So those two kind of go hand in hand. I think the right options is an interesting one. This is where people's needs have changed, their expectations have changed. So allowing them to have options of how they want to ingest the content. It's been really interesting to see how people are thinking about that and how they're repurposing what they've done historically in new fashions to provide those options. And obviously, we think technology is a huge piece of that. Just making sure that, to get the content out there, whether it's chat and gamifying and networking, we have to have technology that allows us to do that, to make it available and to make that diverse, those options easily accessible for all attendees, whether they're, exhibitors or sponsors or just the general attendees as well. And giving them the ability to engage, schedule appointments, leverage things like lead capture, all those things that we've talked about. So tech is a big piece, I think, for all 5 of these, getting right aspects. And then the adjustments, I think when we talk about the data and everything that we've done up to this point, it's what are we doing with that next? I think where tech again is going to be a big piece of it, is bringing that all into one place, being able to digest it easily, and then make the right adjustments, moving forward. So I think, thinking about how we get it right in those 5 areas, I kind of led to it there, and it's where we'll kind of take this before we get to the end and kind of the summary and Q&A, is all of this is backed by data. When we think about getting it right, the time and the content, the on-site experience, the options, it has to be data driven. Collecting it consistently, collecting it accurately. This is really kind of creating the blueprint for event execution, success across the entire program. And we can repeat it time and time again. So with data, that's really how we're getting to the next step. So here you'll see it's a pretty busy slide, but crazy enough, this is, really just 8 points, I think, that are highlighted here in this slide, 8 data points, if you will, that show, kind of showcasing some of the things that we've discussed today, or that I've discussed, extended engagement, and really starting that pre-event, during the event, and keeping it going post-event. The reality is there's probably a couple of dozen that we could have put here in terms of other things you could be tracking across the audience and across this experience, especially, as we incorporate more and more of the digital aspects into these in-person events. You're going to have a lot more of this, attendee engagement data that you can really measure, dive deeper into, and then leverage as well. On the pre-event side, really seeing that ramping up, again, the personalized experience, allowing for networking, surveys, having a really dynamic registration experience, maybe even segmenting it out so certain groups can talk to certain groups, before the event. Obviously, during the event, all the good stuff in terms of features and functionality within technology to allow people to give their feedback, engage, network, and all those things that you can track on your end and make decisions on around as well for future execution. And we haven't talked a lot about post-event, but I think that's where, in the conversations I'm having, we're just seeing, I would say, a lot more conversations around is, hey, we do an okay job of tracking their on-site in-person, but we really want to get better at then post-event kind of debriefing on it, taking all of those responses and all the data, maybe getting some scoring or a way that we can, make it easier to understand it, making sure that we're checking how we did against budgets and our spend and costs. And did we hit our targets? Did we drive the revenue like we wanted, or maybe it's membership growth, whatever it is? Did we achieve the top goals and have that very easy to showcase to executive leadership and the organization across the board? So not easy, but I think with some of the best practices on the strategy side and what we're seeing in the market in terms of how folks are executing effectively there, we can get to that level. And ultimately, that's, getting this data, we get to live reporting, we're doing something with it. We're getting that feedback, we're being strategic with it. This is also going to help us speed up sales processes or integrate with our existing tech stack if we're kind of centralizing it and have it all in one place. So all things that we're seeing of high importance. And ultimately, the end all be all, it's, we want to measure success. We want to showcase that. We want to show the ROI, and that, like, now that we're rebooting and getting back in person, we're doing it better than ever. And here are the results to showcase that. Awesome. All right. Well, we are getting towards the tail end. I really, really appreciate everybody sticking with me. I know I've talked a lot. I've thrown a lot at you. We'll share some great resources, post this as well, and we'll get into the Q&A here shortly. But, in conclusion, just kind of to summarize some of the main points here that we've kind of covered, over the last, 40 minutes or so, is I wanted to kind of put it into, I would say, three buckets. So I didn't go with 4 this time around. I narrowed it down to 3, shortened it up a little bit. But just to really kind of simplify it, where are we today? Changing economy. We've talked a lot about that. Costs are high. We're really focused on efficiency, and we want to get the most bang for our buck. ROI is important. Event formats, we're just kind of rethinking about it a little bit, investing in the right technology that's flexible for us to be able to handle all types of events, consolidation, and just how we're delivering the events. And social responsibilities. We didn't dig too deep into this, but it is something that we're hearing more and more. Accessibility, sustainability, some of those things that are becoming more and more top of mind. Just making sure that we're incorporating that in terms of our events program, especially as we go back in person and really dive deeper into it. And what are we seeing? So it's where we're at. Where are we currently, and then thinking about what are we doing about it. A lot of things I could have listed here, but I kept it to 4. So I went back to my themes of 4 here. Again, the formatting of our event programs. Maybe it's more events with smaller audiences or less events trying to drive bigger audiences. All good. Is it a mix of mostly in person with some digital elements and maybe some hybrid pieces? We're really seeing a lot of organizations still keeping kind of their core events intact, but rethinking, other events and just how their overall program across the organization is going to be done. Extended engagement, no need to index too far there, but that's it's definitely a theme that we're seeing. It's huge within person, and just making sure that that life cycle is extended and we're keeping those people engaged. With that, as we extend it, we're getting better data, we're capturing it, we're measuring it, we can do more with it. It's going to help our strategy and our execution. And then lastly, we're thinking strategically now. We're trying to really have one centralized place where we can manage all of these things, hopefully, and having that single source of truth. One, makes everybody's life easier, but also it really drives the right results. We can be more productive with our time and really, deliver on those in-person events. And then lastly, I know you guys love to see this, what's in it for me? So I think in speaking with, planners, marketers, and organizations like yourself, it's great to see all the benefit of them kind of doing those first 2 things, being aware of the industry, the landscape, what's going on, doing some of those things in terms of putting them into practice and changing the way that they're going about their in-person events and their program. And what it's resulted in is, hey, they've expanded their skill set. They're really just much more diverse in terms of what they can offer as a planner or marketer. They're collaborating more with their teammates, with other departments across the organization. It's just a better overall communication cadence. They're breaking down those silos. So where maybe 2 years ago, we were very much, it's our event, this is how we do it. That's their event, that's how they do it. That is now becoming, this is our program, we're all in it together. The other day, they're increasing the bottom line. They're saving costs, saving time, but they're making money and they're driving revenue as well. I think these 2 go hand in hand. They're building for a foundation for the future of their events program, a successful foundation, and seeing that long-term success is going to be the only outcome that comes from it. So I think that's a good way to kind of cap it off here. Is there's a lot of value for you all as you're thinking about rebooting your in-person events and taking them to another level. With implementing some of these things, there's a lot of impact that you'll feel personally, and the organization as a whole will be much better off as well. All right. And then I think from here, we're going to get into Q&A, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll address some of those questions in real time. Let's see here. All right, so let's see. When you say lack of visibility, who are you suggesting needs more insight? Stakeholders, attendees, the planner's own understanding? Man, that is a really good question. I think, well, it's a great question. When I was thinking about it in terms of lack of visibility, it was more on the stakeholder side. So more thinking about the planners and marketers that we're speaking with, and just, they have very top level, I'd say, or high level. Hey, here's how the events program is doing. But they really didn't dig too deep into the processes behind it, the amount of manpower hours that were being spent to get to those end results. So it's a great question, though. It gets me to think that maybe the attendees do have some lack of visibility in certain aspects as well. I think that it's probably a relevant point. But to answer the question directly, in kind of the strategy side, it was more on the planners and how they're kind of putting their events program together or rethinking about it, having to go a level deeper than they had before historically. And it was, there's actually, I'll have to share it as well. Maybe we can put that in the follow-up content. I think it was Association Now that had a really great article talking about nonprofits and associations specifically, but how visibility into the overall business and their program and processes was a huge kind of, I guess, result of them digging further. It was, I'm not doing it justice, but it was a great article that kind of focuses on how that is something that's top of mind for them and something that they're looking into more here in 2023. All right. Question 2. What are you seeing other customers doing with regards to personalization? What are they offering attendees as carrots to sign up and be part of live events? Personalization. I think a couple of things that we're seeing is just on the registration side of it. I think they're asking a couple of more pointed questions. I guess being able to offer more filtering ability once they get those registrations as they come in. So just learning a little bit more about them up front in terms of what they're interested in. What would an ideal session look like for them? What are some of the ways that they, what are they trying to get out of the event? Almost like a survey, if you will, a pre-survey or pre-event survey that they're incorporating into registration. I love that. They get a better profile as that person registers. And then I think from there, they have some content ready at the helm, to, kind of the carrots, as you mentioned, to send to those people specifically based off of those criteria or the things that they answered. And incentivizing attendees, to sign up. Maybe it's you get, a special privilege, or obviously we do early bird specials and you get a discount. But perhaps it could be, you get access to certain content or you get to meet and greet with the speaker. So I think those two things, I think they've spent a little bit more time just getting each attendee to tell a little bit more about themselves before they register. So then we have a good kind of, map and blueprint of, okay, this is what they like. Here are the things that we should kind of, sprinkle to them prior to the event, and at the event, maybe have some personalized experiences based off of those responses. So a little bit more filtering, a little bit more categorizing of attendees based off of registration. And I think just being more thoughtful, if you will, in each of those buckets has been something neat that we've seen and has been successful for our customers. All right, let's go to the next one here. Okay. Incentivize. Okay. Question 3. What are your thoughts on giveaways, and have you seen anything that's really cool and new, or anything that is really out? Good question, Michelle. I struggle with that one because I like them. I think they can be effective. I do think just the kind of traditional ones of, whether it's Amazon gift cards, just to give you guys a peek behind the curtain, we use ReachDesk, which is the technology that allows to send gifts. There's some pretty cool, well thought out stuff. There's like, you can do like, was it Grubhub or, DoorDash type of promotions or gift cards. So I think it's still relevant. I think attendees it still drives the behavior of, them wanting to be a part of that event and getting something in return. I'm trying to think internally. We did something that was, they sent us like a gardening thing. I forget the name of it exactly, but it was my wife was super jacked up about it. And it was just, for us to take action on certain things we needed to do internally. And we got, like a little gardening set. So I think, yes, they work. I think people are just maybe using, I think those go hand in hand of, as we ask more questions and know a little bit more about attendees up front as they register, we can probably build our giveaway program or our, what to send them and what's going to entice them around that. So I think it goes a lot into the using that information, the data, if you will, to then be more strategic of what are the right giveaways or what are things that our audience in particular really don't care about, and said it's not relevant to them. So hopefully that helps. All right, and I think we're on the last question, so we should be right on time to get this wrapped up. All right, our events team is part of the marketing group, and the expectation is to contribute MQLs. I love that. We talk about MQLs all the time, marketing sales follow-ups as connected to the attendee journey. Is there a training module or webinar that focus on Cvent and Salesforce integration? Great question. I'm not sure if there's a webinar that's specific on Cvent and Salesforce integration. I know that we've had many webinars. It's like, incorporating Cvent into your tech stack. I will say that I think that is something that's in the works in terms of a specific one around Salesforce, because that is our most, I would say, built out and most extensive integration that we have today. is Cvent with Salesforce. We were one of the first Salesforce customers. So we have a really good relationship with them. We've built a really good integration as well. So the short answer is we definitely have some training materials. We can follow up with some things from the Cvent community around just overall how Cvent plays nice in terms of integrations with Salesforce and how well that's built out. It's obviously something that, we talk about drinking our own champagne. We use Salesforce as well. And we worry very much about MQLs and SQLs at Cvent Connect and some of our other events that we attend. So it is very much something that we know a lot about and have a lot of resources around. So Joanne, I can follow up with you personally around upcoming ones as that comes to fruition, but also some content in the interim that will give you a better understanding of that you can share with the marketing group. All right, I think actually we might have more questions, so bonus questions. All right, let's see here. Maybe not. All right. Perhaps maybe I thought there was more questions, but I'm waiting to see from the team if we have anything else. But if not, I can do good housekeeping here at the end as we wrap up. Just a quick reminder, please fill out the survey. That'd be super, super helpful for myself and for the organization, just to make sure these webinars are fruitful for you. It's my first time doing this webinar, so hopefully I did an okay job. I kept your guys' attention and I shared some great content. And again, outside of doing the survey, you'll also be able to see upcoming webinars as well. There's some really, really good stuff over the next few weeks. I'm definitely going to personally join a few of these, or at least watch the recording if I can't make it live. And again, thank you all so much for hanging with me today. Hope it was valuable, and we all really look forward to seeing you all again. And hopefully getting a chance to work together at some point in the future. Thanks again, everybody.